r/AskReddit. Serious, Redditors who live in a van, on a boat, in a cabin off the grid, in a tent or a sleeping bag, really everything except the usual four walls with ceiling and roof. What's your story? I spent the first 6 years of my life aboard a 31-feet sailboat. My dad was in the military and bought the boat rather than living on base. When he and my mom got together, it was easier for my mom to move aboard than it was for him to sell the boat. Then I was born. My parents moored in the Bay Area of California. And the rest was history. Growing up, I had basically the same experiences as everyone else. Just in a slightly different way. Most kids had a swing in their backyard. My swing was mounted to the mast and swung out over the ocean. I had to wear a life jacket every time I used it. And never while we were underway. I had the same toys as everyone else. Just fewer of them. Because my room was the V-berth in the boat's bow and space was at a premium. My mom still had to wrestle me into the bathtub on the regular. Though my bathtub was a plastic bucket filled from the galley sink. Of course. Living aboard, I had some experiences most folks never got to. Our marina was fairly deep and fairly quiet. Meaning wildlife encounters were a nearly daily occurrence. Most were the usual beach wildlife. Sandpipers and grebes and herons and the like. But every now and again we'd get an eagle ray. Or a starfish wider than I was tall. Or dolphins or porpoises or one very lost ocean sunfish. Whenever my parents got restless, they'd bring some extra groceries aboard and cast off for a long weekend underway. I learned early how to keep my balance when the waves got up. And to this day seem immune to seasickness. I wasn't as a kid. But that's another story. It's been 20 years now since I lived aboard. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Your writing style made reading that very pleasant. I'd read a book about your life on the boat. If you wrote one. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. This is possibly the best compliment I could have woken up to. I've thought about writing about growing up aboard. But given the response I've gotten here, I might have to think about it a little more seriously now. I don't live in it anymore, but I moved out of my parents' house and into a buddy's van when I was 23. Drove around. Had a great time. Eventually spent all my money by the time we hit Georgia, so I got a job and a normal place, and now I live in Georgia. He's still out riding that van. Somewhere. You're making the two things I dream of sound so incredibly easy. To be fair, your dream sounds very easy to accomplish. Get a van, save up for a van. Drive the van wherever you want to go. This will be very easy in a van. As it is what they were designed to do. Honestly. Sounds damn amazing. And that's coming from a city boy. Sounds amazing to me as long as there's internet with decent ping. I lived in a teeny cabin 12 feet by 20 feet off grid because my best friends and I wanted to live in that part of the country, and we don't, like most people, and the land was cheap and had a spring for our water. Now you would never know our homes are off grid except for the solar panels out back. I'm jealous. I was going to Kenya to attempt the same thing. But my friend backed out and I didn't want to do it alone. I was worried that if I broke a leg or something, I'd die out there. That is a legitimate concern. You better be in good shape and know what the duck you are doing before doing that. You better both know your first aid and have a good med kit, with the assumption you can't just call whatever 911 is there. I got kicked out of my apartment. I asked my buddy, who lives on a boat, if he knew anyone looking for a roommate or a tenant. He said he would ask around. But that I always had a place to stay with him on the boat. Now I live on a boat. How is life on a boat? In your case, it's obviously not cruising to different places, going fishing and having parties in the sun. Or is it? The boat is at a marina. It's definitely not off the grid. It's like an apartment on the water. I do fish off the back of the boat though, and have been surprised at how much big fish there are just swimming around the marina. I'm currently hiking the PCT, a 2,650-mile trail from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. So, I sleep in my tent most nights. Just past the 1,500-mile mark today actually. Dude, this is a long shot. But I have a friend who should be around 1,500 miles in right now. If you happen to meet a pair named Camo and Squeak, tell them hi. They're great people. I love Those guys. Haven't seen them in a couple weeks though. I last saw them at Carson Pass. What a great couple. Broke up with a girl. Moved apart. Bought a van to be able to move all my stuff from there. Realized I now have a van and fixed it up to live in it. Now I'll live in my van. How do you shower? Not op. But generally you can park yourself in a campground with amenities like bathrooms, showers, etc. Source. Lived in an F-150 pickup for a while during college. I lived in a small city house in Atlanta that was completely off the grid for 5 years. We had solar energy. All rainwater system that filtered and pumped into the house. Composting toilet. Bees. Chickens. And we grew our own food. We built 2 tiny houses on the property, more like sheds, as well. It was a great adventure, but man, the summers were brutal without AC. And the winters were dark because our solar energy system wasn't the best. I remember many nights of eating dinner cooked on our camping stove to the light of a kerosene lantern. And being able to look out the window at our neighbors who had city power, AC, and all their ducking lights on. And winter we would have to heat up our water on the stove and take bucket baths in the bathtub, since not having city water meant no hot water either. Our definition of luxury dramatically shifted in that time. And to this day I am in awe of hot water from a tap. At the same time, it wasn't all bad at all. We chose to live that way. And I would do it all over again for sure. I remember so many warm summer nights sitting among our organic veggie garden, collards almost as tall as me, watching the lightning bugs come out. Our chickens laid the best damn eggs of my life. And I developed a real deep appreciation for the pace of the earth when forced to live so closely to the schedule of the plants and sun. Edited to add more details. At the time I was living there, I was dirt poor, so everything was engineered out of found low-cost objects. I would build everything better the next time around, particularly since now that I've got a lot of experience building systems and a much better income. My job is now portable, so I'm currently doing some long-term travel, living out of my car and couch surfing, which I just started 2 months ago. My goal is to determine where and how I want to live tiny by January. Tiny house on a foundation? Tiny house on wheels? Van life? Boat life? RV? We will see. Solar gets damn expensive for a capable system. There's a tiny house movement near me. And my company was considering producing them. Looking at like 10 grand for a solar setup with enough grunt to keep a lot of people happy. Hell. Even a small one was a couple thousand just cause of inverters and batteries. My husband and I live in a 16x16 foot military tent out in the Montana wilderness. We are in the process of building a house and will most likely be in the tent till October when it starts getting really cold. I hope we can dry in the house before that. Just got our foundation walls poured. Working on adding redding floor heating before the slab goes in. It's been quite the journey so far. Let's see, we have a solar powered well pump. A solar shower bag for warm showers, but mostly we bathe in the river. We also have solar powered internet. We stream the Mariners every night with a projector. Shout out to our /MLB streams. Anyway, I love living and cooking outside. Today it's 80 degrees and I can hear the birds in the river. We have a bear that comes through every now and then if we forget to put the dog food in our geep. He really likes dog food. Haven't seen him in person yet, but I've woken in the middle of the night when our dog barks and know he's out there being a bastard. Edit. Thanks for the interest. For anyone who cares, here are some pics of our tent setup. Imgur.com link. The casual mention of the bear. UK wildlife is a lot more boring. Black bears tend to behave more like raccoons than grizzlies. Still dangerous and need to be careful. But not so that you'd miss out on a wonderful nature experience. I did it for about 6 months this year in my old VW 70 camper. My partner and I had moved to a new city, but I couldn't find work there. I got a job 4 hours away, so started in February, staying in a pub car park and keeping warm using the burners. Moved into the woods in March and stopped there for 5 months. Best part was watching the sun go down through the trees, learning to juggle and smoking a doob. Worst bit was being made homeless by hornets on 2 separate occasions. Oh. And hitting in a bag. When I was young, My mum took me on a road trip to the UK in a regular 70-something VW bus. We had a mattress, a 2-flame petrol cooker and not much else. I can somewhat relate to your experience, though I only shared it for a month and my hit bag was a pee bottle. Care to elaborate about the Hornets? Door open. Hornet gets in. I get the flip out of there. Same Hornet I reckon. I lived on a 27-foot Ericsson for about 3 years. I was living in LA and a production manager I worked for lived on a boat and it seemed like a cool idea. Got lucky with a find on Craigslist and saved a few thousand because the motor didn't work and the guy needed to sell it. Had a friend fix it for under $100 and some beer. Saved a ton of money not paying LA rent and went sailing every weekend. One of the best times of my life. Ended up selling it after making a few upgrades for way more and went backpacking in South America for a year with the money. Currently building a 2017 Tacoma and thinking about living out of it. 2017 Tacoma. Had no idea. Googled it. Wow, you guys really get a bang for your bucks. My car was half the size. Thrice the age for half the price of a 2018 base model. Also, your experience sounds pretty cool. This is the tech support equivalent of, is it plugged in? It was. Over. I get to comment. I live in a 1984 Dodge B250 camper van. Purely by choice I should add. I was sick and tired of paying $1,200 or so towards rent every month and not getting anything out of it at the end. So I searched and searched for something that would fit my needs and the van hits the spot. It's not exactly classy. It's a wood paneled ocean liner with shag carpet but it's home. My beer is always within arm reach. I can move whenever I please and it's easy to clean, also my job pays me to live on my worksite with it so it works out. I've lived on some type of rubber for about 4.5 years. Love the freedom and the lifestyle. My dog has seen more of North America than most people I know. It's by choice and I can't see it ending anytime soon. How do you make money for gas and supplies? Sold most possessions for a bankroll, house, cars etc. Do odd jobs for pocket money when it's worth it. Keep my overhead low and just try to be smart about everything. It gets easier every year tbh. Finally something I can really answer. I built out a Sprinter van as a mobile home and office in February and have been living out of it ever since. I love it more than any other place I've lived. I started working remotely and freelance about 3 years ago and decided I'd rather travel than keep paying rent while I do my work. Everything runs on a large solar array that keeps my computer setup going strong. All winter I snowboard during the day and work at night. And all summer I travel from national forest to national forest working during the week like normal and then hiking and doing other stuff on the weekends. I don't really have any motivation to get a girlfriend or settle down, so this lifestyle works well for me and my dog. I'm willing to answer any other questions for you. I plan on continuing this for the foreseeable future. I've been living in a travel trailer for the last 4 years. Started working on pipelines 6 years ago and was always on the road and decided it wasn't worth paying rent on a place I only saw an average of 4 days a month. Now I can live where I'm working and bank more lower versus staying in hotels, and I go wherever I want when I have time off. I've minimized what I own and waste less money on non-essential things due to a limit of storage space, which further saves money. Sometimes I do get myself a nice hotel room for a long, hot shower that lasts longer than 8 minutes. Good Wi-Fi and cable though to spoil myself. I could have Wi-Fi and satellite in my trailer, but I just really don't miss it that much. You learn that YouTube is just a waste of time because it kills your data. There was a guy who worked for Google or one of the tech companies who decided to live in a panel truck in the company's parking lot. Like you, he realized he was paying a ton of money for a place where basically all he would do is sleep because he was working such long hours. It helps that Google has a gym, showers, food and internet on site, all of which are free to use for employees. I lived on boats for a while. I was a Bering Sea fisherman. And then I worked on super yachts. Cabins were about the size of a coffin. So you had no place of your own to go. Even if you were between jobs, or anything else happened. Did you ever end up without a place to sleep? In between jobs. I'd live with my parents or crash with a friend, rent a room. I was 19 when I worked in the bearing. And it was only like 2 months between the last contract in AK and the first super I hatched. I live in a 1997 Ford E350 at the moment and I must say I'm loving it. I was medically released from the Canadian Armed Forces and knew that I'd be moving to Winnipeg for me next job. I knew I didn't want to rent and throw my money away and mortgages are far too expensive, so I figured the hell with it. I'll live in a bus. I gotta say I don't imagine anything better for me. How are you liking your 350? I'm in a 96 E150 ATM in Texas. I don't love in a tent anymore, but I used to in the Everglades. I was just young and I couldn't find anyone that would rent me. Ended up in a tent in a ranch and just took care of the animals in exchange of living on the property. But which was really cool because I love animals, but the owner of the property was a massive piece of shit. I grew up on a 100-year-old wooden tall ship with my father. Currently I'm working on a 172-foot white yacht that fishes in Alaska and Costa Rica. I have a guitar, clothes, and my Nintendo Switch. I'm happy. I don't know about OP, but you've got me intrigued. If you care to share details, I'd be very happy to read it. Edited it with the full story. Thanks. I live in a van that I turned into an RV. I rather live rent-free than constantly have to worry about bills. I live in Texas right now, so the heat is pretty bad during the day, but at night it's livable. I've got basically a full kitchen and I sleep in a hammock, so I'm not missing out on much. Plus it's an interesting talking point once people find out. There's a few things that you really have to adjust to though. The main one is showering at the gym or using public restrooms if the need comes up. Both can be included if you get a big enough van and are willing to sacrifice other aspects of your living space. If anyone has questions, just ask. I'm an open book when it comes to this stuff. Been living in it for about 4 months now. Thanks for watching and be sure to subscribe to RedditQueen for the best daily content.